Welcome to Manager Tools. This week, Behavioral Effectiveness and MTDISC Example 1, Part 2. The questions this cast answers are, how can I be more effective in relationships? What can I change in my behavior at work in order to get ahead? And what can I do to help others like me? If you want answers to these questions and more, keep listening. On May 2nd and 3rd, we'll be in Melbourne, Australia. We're hosting an EMC on the 2nd and an ECC on the 3rd at the Melbourne Marriott. It's so exciting to be back in Australia. We were there in the fall and had a blast, and we'd love to host you at our Melbourne event. If you're listening down under, please think of joining us May 2nd and 3rd for an EMC and ECC. And bear in mind, those events now count towards program management certification, in case that's something that's valuable to you. See you there. Okay, the effective behaviors. So, what are we going to do about this? Communication is what the listener does. In the examples above, both Samuel and Dakota communicated in ways that made sense to them, but not to their listener, not to the other person in the exchange. And it results in neither party being satisfied with the exchange that happened. Mm-hmm. And in these cases, too, not success in the work area either.
Yeah, no, total ineffectiveness in terms of getting the work out the door, right? In terms of moving on to the next step in their work product. And one of the problems for most of us is that we think of our way of communicating as being the way of communicating, right? And it's in part because most of us learned, if you can call it that, how to communicate when we were young. We weren't officially taught how to communicate effectively, especially not in a professional context. We weren't taught it. And by the time we got to the workforce, by the time we actually became professionals, our communication style was fairly well ingrained in us. I mean, you almost at some point, you don't even know that the other way exists. And most of us don't even think we have a particular style. We're just doing what we do. It's not unusual for people to think that there aren't styles that are similar to others. It's just all of our 4 billion inherent natural styles that are all completely different. And it's not true. That is, we don't even realize, most of us don't even know communication is what the listener does. And it's not about us. We don't even think about the reception of our ideas by the audience. All we're thinking about is our delivery of the message.
It's interesting, too, that a lot of people, you see this when you see people who are just waiting to talk. There's a lot of people out there who they don't do a lot of listening.
Right.
They're just waiting to talk. And so we should make a note here for those of you who are meant to be listeners occasionally. And some of us are talking too often to be the listener. Okay. So maybe it's time to hush and listen. And for those of you who are meant to be the listener in a conversation, you're the person doing the hard work. You're supposed to be the person doing the hard work. Or at least let's dispel the idea or the rumor that listening is a very passive kind of situation that, oh, I could just sit here and,
right,
it'll just roll across the top of my head. I'm not really paying attention. Let's get rid of that idea and start maybe thinking of listening as just as important as talking, and help the person who's talking to get their message across to us by actively listening, paying attention, trying to process it, asking questions, things like that. Because even if you are listening to somebody who you talk to a lot, they might not communicate the same way you do. And again, the people talking, they don't think they have a particular style. Everybody's just doing what they're used to doing. It's only communicating if both people are working at it. And now that you know that it's the listeners who are doing the communicating, you can help to contribute better to conversations and exchanges of information by doing your part, which is listening, asking questions. And there's better ways as well, not just from the listener's perspective, but from the person who's talking. There are better ways to do this. In fact, the best way is, rather than being trapped in your own pattern of behavior, to change your behavior for better outcomes. It's not attitude or mentality or ideas that cause the change. It's actually behavior, behaving differently in a way that you speak, in the words that you use, so that the other person can actually be communicated to by you, by bridging that gap.
Yeah. And that's super important because all behaviors are available to all of the human beings. It doesn't matter what your background is. I mean, the best, easiest way to think about it is your communication behaviors are simply that, behavior. This isn't about who you are as a person. It doesn't matter what your education is or your geography or your intellect, race, creed, any of that. Your gender doesn't matter. If you want better outcomes, get out of your own way and change your behavior.
I think we have to mention behaviors. I think we have to just go through them again, just to be sure that everybody's on the same page as us, because behaviors in a professional setting are one of 5 things: the words you say, word choice, how you say them, speed, tone, inflection, volume, facial expressions, body language, and work product. And what Sarah's saying in that sentence of all behaviors are available to all of us is that everyone listening, or 99.9% of the people listening, have the ability, for example, to change the volume of their voice.
Yeah.
And that's a behavior.
I could talk loud or soft. In either case, I'm still Sarah.
Yes. And we've heard it before from people. Oh, hey, if you speak a little more quickly, that would be helpful. And people push back a bit and say, that's not who I am. I always struggle with that because I think that we spend less time monitoring our own behaviors than would be useful, because even people who speak slowly most of the time sometimes speak quickly.
Yeah.
When they're excited about an idea or something. And then that means that you are capable of speaking more quickly. And it isn't not yourself to speak faster. It's simply a defensive position to take, to say, oh, and it really is. It's a defense of your current comfortable rut, your current comfortable process. And y'all, behavioral change is hard. We're not unaware of the obligation we're placing upon you. We honestly know how important it is to get this done. And that's why we're suggesting something that is hard. Yeah. I suppose we don't need this disclaimer because we don't do a lot of, hey, this will be easy, give it a shot kind of things. We realize most of you right now, if you looked down at your body language, you're probably not paying attention to the way your legs are crossed or your arms are crossed or your position of your hands on your wheel if you're driving. You're not paying attention to your body language, for example, right at this moment. And now that I've mentioned it, you are, it's a behavior, and that means you could change it. And you do all the time. You move your body in different ways all the time. So
all the time.
Rather than focusing on ourselves and what we want and what we like to do and what we find natural to do, we recommend you focus on the listener. It's the listener that you need something from, as is so often the case in our professional lives. Haha. Fun times. So say to yourself, not, hey, I'm going to be myself. Instead, say to yourself, how can I behave in a way that shows respect for my listener and gets me what I want, rather than just doing what would come easiest to me?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And folks, this is a power you already possess. This is a skill you already have. And many of us are so much more open to, and we almost do it unintentionally, to changing these behaviors, the words we say, how we say them, facial expression, body language, work product, in our personal lives than our work lives. Standard, easy example. Would you behave the same way at the beach as you would a funeral? No, for sure, 100%. No way I'm doing that. Good.
You don't make sandcastles at both of those places?
Exactly. You wouldn't speak the same volume. You wouldn't wear the same clothes. You would do none of the same things. You would behave wildly differently based on what the situation required. This is an extension of that ability.
Yes.
You have the ability to be aware of how your communications can alter and improve, in this case, a situation. So take that power you already possess and use it for more situations more often for, in this case, the betterment of yourself professionally, your teams, and your overall organization.
There's one more thing I think that's important to mention here, because we've done this. We do this a lot, changing our communication style, our behaviors around communication with other people. We do this a lot. And y'all, I mentioned it's not necessarily easy. You have to pay attention. You have to make choices. My experience with this is sometimes the hardest thing is getting over your own self and your own ego and saying, I just have to decide. Now you know, right? Before this cast, maybe you didn't know what to do to have a better experience, to have a better relationship, to have a better conversation. Now you're going to know. And y'all, I've struggled with this. I have been in a professional setting where the relationship between the two people was not positive because of the examples, like we just, because of the Dakota Samuel thing that we posited previously, having occurred a bunch of times, the relationship felt sour.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was both in possession of the knowledge and capable of the change to fix that problem. And I knew the other person wasn't, not because they weren't really, really smart, not because they didn't have a kind heart, simply because not as many people know about DISC.
Yeah.
Not as many people know these things.
Yes.
And not as many people pay attention at this level to their own behaviors. So I knew I had the power to change it. And there was a brief slice of time, and this isn't to my credit, where I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I don't want to.
I know, dude, I'm right there. I get it. If you're in that moment, you're like, I know what to do. I don't want to. Mad
I don't want to do it.
Mad at the right answer.
So mad.
That's useful.
Yeah. And if you're feeling that way, if you have a relationship that's not going well and you know it's sour and you know they have also behaved poorly, and only because, maybe not poorly, but they, you're not the only person in this relationship. So you're not responsible for all the fact that it's sour, maybe.
Totally.
If you know how to fix it, listen, take the weekend, okay? Take this weekend, sit down, be mad at it for an hour, and then remind yourself of your professional obligation.
Yeah.
Which is to have positive relationships with the people at the organization that help you and the organization to produce results. Stop being authentic to your feelings and start being a professional.
Right.
And go back to work and use what we're about to share with you to make it better. Because how you feel about this is not as important as your professional obligation to the organization to get these things done, to get this communication portrayed to the other person with positivity and with effectiveness. Y'all, sometimes you just got to get over yourself. And to some extent, that's being an adult, but you don't have to do this all the time when you're an adult. Like in your personal life, that's above our pay grade. You want to be chapped? Go be chapped. At work, that's within our pay grade. So here it goes.
Yeah. Let's give an example.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's give an example so people can kind of see.
Oh, I got spun up.
How this works, right? Fired up.
Yeah.
To kind of see how it works, because these concepts are incredibly powerful. I mean, if you'll just get out of your own way. But okay. So let's look at a couple of more Dakota Samuel examples, and you'll know that we've changed the behaviors of both of the parties, not just the one initiating the conversation itself. So, episode 1, the one where Dakota needed the late sales reports from Samuel. Dakota looks at her watch. It's 2:30, and she needs the quarterly sales reports from Samuel. He owed them to her at 2 p.m., and if you'll remember, she was being generous with that deadline, so now she really must have them. So, Dakota walks over to Samuel's desk. Samuel looks up slightly, and Dakota says, "Hi, Samuel. How are you today?"
Samuel smiles and says, "Hi, Dakota. I'm great, thanks. And you? Please have a seat."
And Dakota sits. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking. You're always so nice. Thanks. Are you having a good week?"
Samuel smiles. "I am. Thanks. I'm kind of behind on some stuff, but I'm plowing ahead. I really liked our staff meeting this week. Lots of good discussion with lots of people chiming in."
And Dakota says, "I agree. It was a good meeting, wasn't it? Hey, look, I know you're busy, but I've kind of got bad news. I would love an update on the sales reports. I know you're pretty busy and I don't want to bother you, but I do have to work through the reports and I owe them to Michaela.
Samuel grimaces and smiles at the same time. Again, try it. Dakota, I'm so sorry about this. I don't have them yet. I feel terrible about it. I regret I missed the deadline.
And Dakota smiles. It's okay. We're all swamped. I'm behind on some stuff too. At least we're all busy. It would be bad if there wasn't enough to do, right?
Samuel nods knowingly. I had a good friend laid off last week. She was a good performer, but it didn't matter when the company had some bad numbers for an extended period of time. I'm going over there tonight.
And Dakota looks down. I know what you mean. The economy is not great. Hey, if she needs any help, I'd like to help. I've learned a lot about resumes and interviewing through some podcasts and professional development I've been doing. And I got this job because of what I learned. My resume was way wrong, and I've since fixed it. And I got so much better at interviewing with a little bit of practice. So if your friend needs help with practice interviews, I'd be glad to do it.
Samuel just beams at Dakota. Really? That is so kind, Dakota. Gosh, it seems like lots of folks don't want to think about others when they're down. I think they're kind of scared that it could happen to them too. It really means a lot to me that you're willing to help my friend.
And Dakota says, you're welcome.
Samuel responds with, let's talk about the sales reports. I know you have actions around them. Obviously, I'm behind, but I can bring it to the top of my list. Would in an hour be okay? That means some other stuff is not getting done, but I can massage that. I'm pretty sure of it.
And Dakota smiles. Wow, an hour would be outstanding. That would help me get home tonight at a decent hour. But I feel bad. Other stuff's going to have to shift around. That's not really convenient for you.
Samuel smiles and waves this off. Yes, but you're already having to shift stuff for my lateness, so it only seems fair. And I heard how good you did in the interviews here. So if you can help my friend, that's a huge win. I can do it. 1 hour.
And Dakota stands up. Thanks, Samuel. That's very kind of you. And please let me know when I can help your friend. And Dakota walks away.
Oh gosh, that was so nice.
Right?
So that exchange felt so much more positive.
Mm-hmm.
There's an honest exchange too. There's kindness involved. There's an actual exchange, right? It's like we had a conversation where information was both traded, processed, and then discussed. Dakota worked really hard to be respectful of her peer, sitting down, asking about his week because she knows he enjoys that, giving facial expressions because that helps him process what she's saying. The result's obviously much better for her.
Right.
She only has an hour and a half delay on work that in the previous example, he wasn't going to get to her until the morning.
Right.
She doesn't have to stay late or, work on it first thing in the morning. And in this case, can we see where their relationship was actually strengthened in a situation where still, the outcome isn't perfect. They've both kind of he's kind of let her down a little bit, and still their relationship got better.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to go back to something you said just a second ago, Kate. We can all see how the results of that interaction were better for both parties. And this goes back to what Kate said earlier, folks. Sometimes you just got to get out of your own way. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, there are going to be people, there are definitely people who just heard that interaction, heard us say that thing and thought to themselves, who's got time for that? I don't have time for that. I don't have time to sit down and chitty chat and ask Samuel questions and offer to help his friend. Who's got time for that? Everyone who wants to go home on time tonight because the end result is so much more effective. The thing is, it's a little bit of, I want to say, advanced investment, but on the back end, wildly better results for both parties. So it's a little investment up front, but a worthwhile investment on the back end for sure.
Yes. And if you've tried this, you will see the benefit of it, and it will be easier to get out of your own way next time. And even if you learn the lesson of getting over yourself, it doesn't mean that it won't happen again, in my experience.
Dude, it's a constant it's a constant thing with every person, with I feel like every relationship. It's kind of like when with a certain person, you've learned to kind of get out of your way, you can have such a better relationship. This goes back to what we said at the beginning. There's that trust. And when that trust is there, it becomes easier to behave in a way that's respectful of the other person and kind of fall into a pattern with them. But you're right. Every single person, it's like starting all over again, getting out of your own way. And even sometimes with those people, it's still a remembrance. I got to get out of my own way here. I've done this before. I know I can have a better relationship with this person if I just put my own preferences aside for a second.
And again, personal life, y'all, do what you want.
Yeah.
Professional life, we're here to tell you, it's part of your professional obligation.
Yeah.
You could be trapped at home. Okay. Second episode.
Yeah.
Scenario reverse. Samuel needs work product from Dakota, which is also past due. So Samuel looks up from his work, realizes he needs the sales reports from Dakota. She does them every week, supposed to give them to Samuel by 2 p.m. And lo and behold, it's 2:30. So Samuel walks over to Dakota's desk. She's very focused on her laptop screen, doesn't seem to notice him. Samuel says, "Hey, Dakota, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need the sales numbers."
And Dakota continues to look at her screen. What? I'm super busy.
Samuel says, "The sales numbers. You owed them to me at 2. It's 2:30 now."
Dakota motions to the chair, still looking at her screen, and says, "Yep, I missed the deadline. Sorry."
Samuel smiles. "Okay, but when can I have them? I don't want to miss my deadline to Michaela."
Dakota stares at him for a minute. Fair enough. If you're going to bring the boss into this, I can have them to you by 9:15 tomorrow morning.
Samuel, "That doesn't work for me. I'm the one who will get his butt chewed by the boss for being late if you give it to me then."
And Dakota relents. Fine. I can have them to you by 3:30 and leave the boss out of this.
Samuel turns and says, "Got it. See you in a bit."
All right. And another successful interaction. How did that interaction feel? You can see how, in this case, Samuel, being the person to arrive in Dakota's office, worked really hard to be respectful of the peer, right? Of Dakota in this interaction. And can you see how much better the result was? Everyone got what they wanted, when they wanted. You can even see how the directness and lack of chit-chat got Samuel what he wanted, even if it was like a little bit uncomfortable. And that's kind of the crux of it.
Yeah. It's comfortable for him. It's comfortable for her.
Right.
And because she's the person who owes the work, doing what's comfortable for her gets him the result he needs.
Yeah. Because it's all about the result.
Yeah. And he probably feels like, ooh, maybe I was like, was that
right?
brusque?
Did I hurt her feelings? Was it too much?
And you kind of, in some of these cases, y'all, you have to console yourself with the idea of, we got the work done.
Yeah.
And that's how that person wants it to go. Even if it doesn't make a lot of sense to you. Because, I mean, sometimes you end up talking to someone about stuff you don't care about.
That's the thing. It reminds me of when we do the Effective Communicator Conference, we read different examples from people of the different traits, DISC. And the D is a one-liner. I mean, it's 2 short sentences. We missed that deadline on the revenue project review. I need a plan for when you're going to fix it. And I stop and at every single time I say to the group, do you think this person's angry? And there's some of the people in the room are like, no. Other people are like, yes. And then there's some that are like, I don't know. And the group that says no is of that communication style. They're like, yeah, no, he's not angry. He just wants something done and he doesn't have much time to type it out. Cool. I get it. I'll do it. But then there's a group in the audience who has no idea if it's anger or not. And the group in the audience that thinks it might be anger is the Samuel, in this case, is hesitant to write back a short one-liner on it, right? Or done, or got it, or we'll have something by the end of the day, or whatever that short one is, because they feel like more conversation is required. But as I was saying the thing, yeah, the recipient just wants an acknowledgement that you caught the ball. Just like, yep, got it. It's that, right? It's no matter who you are, you feel uncomfortable tailoring your behavior to the other person. The other person loves it though. They always love it.
Yeah, because the person who wrote that short email, if you send them more than 2 or 3 sentences is going to be so frustrated.
Oh my gosh.
They're not
even going to read it, dude.
Email.
They're going to open it and they're like, oh, what is all this? Forget it. I'll do it myself.
So we shouldn't then just do what we think is best because it's not necessarily helping the other person.
No.
And the flip of these scenarios helps us to see where, okay, High D Dakota had to tolerate a much longer interaction than she would normally want to get the outcome that she desired in the end. She had to change her process to maximize the outcome. And the same is true for Samuel. He had to have an exchange that probably felt brusque and short, and it got him what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the question, isn't it? Do you want to be comfortable or do you want to be effective? Do you want to be yourself or do you want to show respect? Do you want to do what's easy or what is most likely to get you where you want to go?
Exactly. Communication is what the listener does. And that means changing your own communications to be more effective.
Behavioral communication and changes in that can help us to have better communications.
Exactly. And not just that, but better relationships. If you want great relationships, it's not enough to just smile or to know people's names or to ask about their kids. If you want to get ahead in your career, it takes more than just bulldozing other people. You've got to be willing to change your own behavior based on your listener. Because all of the behaviors, the words you say, how you say them, facial expression, body language, work product, all of the behaviors are available to all of the people all of the time, and communication is what the listener does.
Hope this helps, y'all.
If you're working in an organization where your professionals contract out to other organizations, you'll probably be excited to learn Manager Tools has recently been recognized by the Project Management Institute. That is, if you're hoping to host an effective manager, effective communicator, or effective hiring manager conference on site at your organization, you can now earn credits towards project management certification. Visit us online at manager-tools.com to learn more information.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, y'all. We'll be back next week with a new topic. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.